Not only is it a brand new season for all of iRacing, tonight kicks off the latest in one of PCA's most popular virtual offerings. That's right. It's time once again for the PCA Sim Racing Series 12. It's the sport class tonight, and you'll see it all live here on RaceSpotTV. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth tonight is Ewan O'Leary, and behind the scenes is our director, Hugo Luis Kalman. And Ewan, this is a very technical way to start the season, a challenging track.
Yeah, that's one word to describe it. Certainly, it's one of those circuits that you would fear in a calendar, but it has plenty of those kind of technical racetracks to come. I mean, Brands Hatch next time out is going to be pretty difficult. We're going over to Australia, to Bathurst later on in the season as well. This calendar is fraught with technical circuits like this one, and so this is just a taster of what's to come, really. But we've already got a bit of an idea as to what we can expect from this 2.5-ish mile circuit. Those overtaking chances down the hill towards turn 5 are really the key to making passes around here. But what a circuit is, certainly a difficult circuit to pass on, but by no means impossible, as we found out last week.
Certainly saw some great attempts at passes and successful passes. We'll see if these drivers can step up to the plate on that one. But I agree, they did not shy away from challenging circuits for the schedule this time around. They are into qualifying currently. They'll get 3 laps to try and set a time. That might be very important here today. We're still waiting on the first laps to be set in this qualifying session. Now, because it is limited by number of laps, they do not have essentially the hot laps to complete at the end of the session. Once those 10 minutes are over, that is it, and we are off to the warm-up for today's race. And you definitely want to have a good start to the season, because this kind of sets the scene for the rest of your championship hopes.
It very much sets the tone, yeah, and one thing is notable, I think, about last season's results in the Push Club of America Sport class, which of course we're seeing here. Derek Dirksen was the champion at the end of it all by just 14 points, but actually that's quite an exaggerated margin compared to how close he and Kevin Jokel were throughout the 7-race calendar earlier in 2024. He gained 9 of those 14 points in the final race at Daytona. In all but one of the races as well, he finished on the podium. So actually, he can't afford to get off to a slow start, not least for the momentum factor that you're talking about there, but actually he will just lose too many points. And Kevin Jokel and all the others found that out last season.
You know, better to be on, I guess, a defense later on than be finding yourself trying to dig out of a hole throughout the season. So we ride on board with Elizondo. Let's see what he can do. Coming up to the start-finish line, around that final corner, definitely wheeling the car. You can see him struggling to try and keep it straight. He'll cross the line, and it does count. He sets a marker of a 26.236. Now everybody else rushes across behind him to try and match it.
Yep, he was the first to set that time, and surprisingly, he hasn't been beaten yet by anybody. Jacobino goes up to 3rd place, just ahead of Jeff Williams, who slots into 4th. Plenty of drivers who have crossed the line there, not having set a time as well, not eligible for a time, I'm afraid. Likes of, well, a couple returning to pit lane actually as well. So we will have a more extended session, which is good in terms of times coming across. But as you say, there will be a limit here. Just 3 laps, as always, for those chimes to come in, and so you do have to get this right. We heard this very much from night 1. Kevin Sandiego said it, I got qualifying slightly wrong, and it may have cost him a race win.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was thinking the exact same thing, that those off tracks or those little mistakes could be costly here. While they don't have a lot of paved runoff where you could do that, there's definitely corners such as this one through 10 and 11 where you can go off track just pushing it that little bit too hard, and you need good track position, or else you're going to be trying to dig it out of that proverbial hole that I mentioned a little bit earlier just in this race alone. But Will coming around to try and set his first timed lap in the 9:07 machine, the never-ending carousel to wrap it up until you have to switch back left down the hill and through into the main straight. It's onto the throttle. Let's see what he's got.
Yeah, it's 26-1 to beat, and it'll be a 27-7 to start with for Will Mungiat, so that will be 20th for now. Mark Foley goes to the top then after a couple of laps. We are still yet to see come across for a second time, well, very few actually, of the top 10. Charles Yao will improve, I would imagine, from the likes of 12th position or so, and just dropping outside the top 10 now to move back into the front positions as we have a look at Carlos Lopez, the first of the drivers to have not completed lap number 2 here in the field, but I don't think was really improving on that lap there, to be honest. Lopez, he indeed doesn't, so 3 tenths behind on that lap time. He's got some work to do in this last lap, but this is what it all comes down to now. An early indication showing that it's Karasai who's maybe making up a bit of time in 5th place. In fact, lots of the top 5 improving at the moment, but I think the number 78 is one looking very good at the moment, and only starting 2 tenths behind.
Watching Jeff Williams with 18 thousandths to make up, but it's not looking like this is going to be a quicker lap, and this is his last attempt at trying to dethrone Foley. Looked like he was way off the apex there in the penultimate corner, so doubt this is going to do it. He did find a little time. It's down to about 3 tenths off of his best, but that's just not enough, and a 26.4 is not going to, in fact, even put him on the front row, because now Jake Gerbino has taken the pole.
Yeah, there goes Rex Jariwala over the line as well to stay outside of the top 10 for him. What about the others? Who else can improve here? It's not looking likely for many, I've got to say. There are not many improvements still to come. Not many drivers at all yet to come over the line. Here goes Mike Saxton in the 7th position at the moment. He will maybe move up a place or 2, but I wouldn't imagine he goes far. Carlos Lopez in the 5th position goes over the line, and he will improve, I think, to 2nd. He does, but not quite enough for pole.
Oh, half a tenth off of that pole position. It is tight, as it is in all the classes. They really match these cars well in terms of pace, and there's a lot of them. I thought this was going to be a smaller field, but more and more kept signing up until we reached 33 here tonight, which again has been a theme in our previous 2 races with the pro and the club seen somewhere in the 30s, and we saw that means that traffic will once again be an issue.
This is a nice helmet cam, if you like, on the right-hand side from Ben Boogie. You can see how much he's rattling his head around, almost as if he's being rattled around himself. Aaron Nason's got up to 3rd place, by the way, as we're watching that, so big improvement for him, but Ben Boogley making a pretty big improvement himself as well here. Not inconceivable that he can challenge the front row. He's certainly going to get in the top 10 with this time. He has a look up to see what it's actually going to be and just where he's got to with this lap here, and it's looking like a 27.7. I think I've over-egged that probably. He stays where he is in 11th place.
Yeah, it did look like he was pushing as hard as he could. Wonder if he's got a motion rig or something for it to really show those bumps. That's a good catch. I didn't think about it until you said something, that his head was really rattling around. I mean
unless that's just how he drives. Some people do just ride around with a head sort of going on a bobble, if you like, or just wobbling around.
Sim racer lean.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It's a real thing. It's a real thing for some people. So maybe that's it, but we'll find out. Good to have some onboard cameras, though, tonight. I know we didn't get too many to start with last week, but good to see that we've already seen a few in the sport class in qualifying.
Aaron Nation sits in 3rd. He's already completed all 3 of his laps, so this is him just kind of getting some practice on the pit entry. We saw you kind of need to do that. We had at least one car with Prescott, I believe it was, that unfortunately found himself into the tire barrier because he overcooked it a little bit.
Hopefully he's not watching again. It's the second time we brought that up after he's done it. So he's watched himself go in the wall, and we brought it up 2 times subsequently. So hopefully he's not watching. But yeah, it's a good example to everybody. But you do need to practice, and in my opinion, it's the most underrated thing to practice in all of sim racing and maybe motorsport widely as well, because you would work. And you don't want to. That's exactly what can happen if you don't practice. So Russell Elizondo has found out exactly what happens. But you would work so hard to gain half a second on the circuit for your own speed, but you can gain that very, very easily by just practicing pit lane a little bit more. And so it's worth doing.
I find it interesting. We are seeing many drivers come into pit lane afterwards and get some extra practice in there. But our pole position goes to Jake Garbino in the number 113, with Carlos Lopez starting in P2, appropriately in the number 2. Aaron Nation starts 3rd, as I mentioned, followed by Mark Foley in 4th. It is Jeff Williams in P5 today on the green flag, with Casey McDonald, who also races in the Porsche Sprint Challenge in real life, starting in 6th. And it's Mehmet Karaçay in 7th and Mike Sachs in P8. Jordan Daniels will start 9th today, followed by Russell Elizondo in the top 10. Ben Bulkley stays 11th, and then Charles Yao will start out the top 12.
Then it's Alberto Fonseca in 13th, ahead of Kenneth Exbridge. Avit Burra is in at the final spot inside the top 15 alongside Alan Owens, and then on row 9 it's Carl Boccieri and Charlie Ferret on that 9th row. Chuck Kension and Jeffrey Gardner round out the top 20. Patrick Gill and David Kaufman are on row 11 ahead of Matt Owens and Nathan Abulakar on the 12th row.
And it's Rex Girawala starting 25th, followed by Randy Lurvold in P26. He's got Peter Yurtza in the 27th spot, followed by Christopher Costas to his outside. From there, Ryan Ritchie starts 29th and Will Mungia in the 30th position. Last couple are Trey Davis in 31st, Marcel Yunus 32nd, and Ronald Cahill in 33rd. All 33 cars have managed to set a time in qualifying. So good to see we don't have anybody at least wildly out of position in terms of our qualifying, from as far as we can tell, as at least one representative lap has been set down. They get these few more laps here in the warm-up, about 5 minutes. But unlike last time, we are now, Ewan, into the fixed setup. So this is not going to do them any more except give them time to continue to practice their braking, their turning, and so on.
Yeah, and they've got nothing to adjust as far as these track conditions go. 27 degrees Celsius. What do we work that was in Fahrenheit? 81? Something like that. In the 80s anyway. And so, but what we didn't account for actually in the first race especially was actually that it got surprisingly warmer throughout the race. Now, of course, it's an hour-long race. It's 9 a.m. at the moment, but a lot of the heating part of the morning is taken on throughout this race, actually. So we didn't quite account for the amount of tyre wear that you would see towards the end of the race. And the thing that won't help these cars further is the fact that in the fixed setup series, the high downforce preset is used in this and the other classes which uses the fixed setup. That should, on a normal day, rip the tyres apart a little bit more than they maybe normally would. So you'd imagine the other classes have pretty high downforce setups on anyway, so tyre wear may be similar, but especially on some of those other circuits, the tyres may get ripped apart a little bit more by these high downforce pre-setups than what we've got with the drivers who have the free choice in the Pro and the other class. Squeak, I've forgotten the name of.
The club class, and
thank you.
It's there's a lot of them to memorize out there, and it's interesting because it has been a bit of a talking point that we saw a few cars that maybe trimmed things out a little bit and made themselves very difficult to pass. That is not an issue here because everybody is on that same downforce setup. Now, that said, with the very high wing, that means it's going to cut a big hole in the air, which means while slipstreaming is not generally considered that big of a thing at this track, it means that it does open it up a little bit. And if you're close enough to somebody, maybe you could try and pull them in, come a good exit out of a out of a corner. So last minute and a half as we watch the 28 down to the line. Charlie Ferrer getting another of his practice laps in here. You talked about the weather. I don't, obviously we don't know what the track temperature is going to be, but the air temperature predicted by the end of this race to get up to somewhere about 78 Fahrenheit, so about 3 degrees Fahrenheit hotter.
Sorry, I should have said in the 70s, shouldn't I, for 27 Celsius, not 80s, sorry. But
no, you were right. It was 80 degrees, but I'm talking air temperature.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Okay, fine. Confusing myself. Anyway, yeah. So it will, and that obviously has more pronounced effect on the track temperature, which always does rise a little bit more. The hotter it gets, the track temperature does generally get hotter and hotter, as I'm sure you're mostly aware. So it will be a thing to think about, and I was surprised to learn that after the pro race, actually, that drivers were talking about tyre wear. I didn't think these races were really long enough to think about that, because don't forget, in endurance racing in this Porsche Cup car, which we're using this season, it's not inconceivable for teams and the top endurance racing teams to either not take any tyres during a full fuel stop and actually end up doing more than 2 hours on a set of tyres, or take 2 tyres depending on what circuit you're at. So the fact that these drivers after an hour were complaining of tyre wear was really surprising to me, but that will be a big learning curve for these drivers as well, and it's the advantage of being in the second week for these drivers. They know what will happen, or have a better idea anyway as to what's going to happen compared to the pro drivers who were the first out on this circuit in this round of races.
Looks like they're getting ready to grid up now, so they will have a rolling start, and that will be a part of things. It is something that the race control is watching as well. A bit of a talking point from the last race was an investigation into a proper start. They're asked to actually stay in line until they get to the start-finish line. The front axle has to cross it before they're allowed to break the line. Now, they do allow for, if there is a checkup, if there's a problem in front of you, you are allowed, obviously, to take evasive action. And that's what happened in the end last time, is that there was a big checkup, so they allowed everybody to kind of have a little bit of leeway on that. That said, Ewan, they did tell the drivers, be aware that you are supposed to pack up and be nice and tight to the car in front of you. So I wonder if they're going to have maybe a little bit less of wiggle room on that one now that they've been made aware. You know, you had the checkup last time. This time, not so much. You guys got to get a nice clean start.
Yeah, we did see a little bit of people not quite staying packed up though, didn't we, last week? Mario Gonzalez, for example, in the club class was caught sleeping really on in position number 2. He told me after the race, by the way, he was adjusting something on his wheel when green flag flew. So let's hope that none of the drivers are doing that when this green flag flies in a couple of moments.
Things are a little bit spread apart up at the very front, which is interesting, as Gerbino has quite a gap over Lopez at first. The green flag is now out, and they are on their way. There is another checkup once again. We definitely have a car in the background having to take evasive action, but thankfully no wreck coming of it until they get to the first corner. Maybe looks good so far. There is a little beating and banging, but they've made it through clean as we watch the rest of the pack file into the Alabama roller coaster.
Yeah, even the 3 wide moment that you described, created by a little bit of checking up, and there's people on the grass up the hill as well. Oh, and a spin right in the midfield, just in front of the pack, and thankfully that Porsche Cup car in the dark red there has just stayed to the right-hand side of the road, and so nobody else gets caught up and involved in it. But for the most part, other than that car, it has been a clean start, thankfully, through the first sector.
I believe that was Elizondo that had that spin. Nice job keeping that from becoming a bigger wreck. We had almost 4 wide down at Charlotte's Web, but now we plunge down through Museum Corner, and it gets much more single file, probably wise through here, although Patrick Gill is the one you see riding the rim around the outside.
Yeah, it is a good thing to do. We've seen incidents on the opening lap of the Pro Series race through turns 9 and 10. Oh, and we've got one here too. A spin just as we were following along, and a bit of a remarkable recovery as well for Rex Jariwala, who just about keeps it on the straight and narrow. And remarkably, again, we don't have a big pileup, which is, of course, a good thing, but a bit of a miracle.
testament to these drivers. They do a lot of coaching in this series to try and, even though this is the second from the bottom rung on this, they do a lot to try and get these drivers racing clean and smart out here. So we get a little bit of side-by-side action coming down to the first corner. That's Alan Owens, who forces Charles Yao a little bit off the track, goes wide, gets into the grass, and the battle continues into turns 2 and 3. Now this is going to trickle down behind them as well as they check up those that are trying to chase, including Bulkley, who's looking for a way down the inside. He's going to go 3 wide. He goes 2 deep and gets into the side of Yao.
But from that onboard camera, it looked to me as if there was contact in the braking zone there as well. I think Alan Owens may have moved across to the left, and there he is. You see him looking and coming to a stop to try and avoid those around him, and there's a spinner in front of him. Ben Bulkley's going to drop to the very back, I'm afraid. That's also undone, or helped, I should say, Alan Owens' progress. He's now made up the most places of anyone in the field, although not in the way he'd hoped, I'm sure.
Well, a position is a position, and Avijit Barua is going to try and get one as he fights with Ken Eskridge for P12, coming along the back half of the circuit. Eskridge more focused on the rear view mirror right now since he's losing a little touch with Alan Owens just in front of him. Sometimes you can see passes here into this last little corner on the right-hand side, but not going to happen this time, and Barua has to wait for later.
Yeah, out over the line they go again at the end of the second lap. Jacob Bina's made a very good start at the front of the field, by the way. Bailey talked about the pole sitter, and that's probably a good thing as far as the pole sitter is concerned. We noted Michael Polsek losing the lead this time last week on the run down towards turn number 1 at the hands of pretty much everybody. He had a pretty bad start, I'm afraid, and that really stunted his progress throughout the race. Still won, but it made it a lot more difficult when you're on pole and you get to an early lead. It's a very good thing indeed, and there is an incident, I'm afraid, for Jordan Daniels and Casey McDonald, who he seems to have tapped around.
Casey's having to wait patiently. He's going to have to find reverse, and eventually he'll get back going on the track. That was a smart thing to do, but unfortunately it did cost him trying to get back into the running. This is Patrick Gill on the inside of Charlie Fair. He's going to make that one stick down into Museum Corner. Again, hard to try and make those overtakes. So it's getting a little sloppy in places, both times down into Charlotte's Web.
And that's and on the way out of turn 7 and 8 this time. There's a spinner there, Charles Yao, it looks like, or at least he's dropping down the field. There he is in the number 17, dropping down the field and dropping to almost the very back. So, yeah, there has been a couple of more incidents as we've got this race actually underway. And you're right, into turn 5 as well has been a hot spot, but that's to be expected. You need to make the moves through there, and so the incidents are going to come there as well.
It was very, very brave by Fair to chop across the bow of Jeff Gardner, but he knew he had enough space. Somebody looking down to the inside. I think that's Boccieri. Boccieri on under attack, actually. And Daniels is the one trying to go for it as the car in front of them skitters off into the gravel and gives them a spot. That's Chad Casey on.
Yeah, and he was the biggest mover forward, by the way, or one of the bigger movers forward, by the way, in this race. And now, all of a sudden, he's on the defensive. Alan Owens side by side with Alberto Fonseca as well for 8th position. By the way, it is all going on here early on. We saw a very orderly first 5 minutes of the Pro Series where there was like maybe 1 or 2 incidents involving quite a few cars, but there was only 1 or 2. This has just been action from the very beginning. Mistakes coming through even in these first few 3 laps.
And those mistakes are telling me that this race is going to be more down to keep it on the islands, because there have been drivers giving up very good positions out there, sometimes of their own doing, sometimes not of their own doing. But look out for trouble, keep yourself out of trouble, and hopefully you'll be able to come away with a result that you were looking for as we continue to watch Casey on. Still trying to attack on Owens, as well as seeing if Kaufman can stay behind him. Here's the replay on Elizondo. Man, just beautiful job locking it up, keeping it off, and I mean almost identical here for Rex.
Yeah, and they realised immediately by locking it up that you can sometimes put yourself in danger, but that's so there was contact between Alan Owens and who was barreling down the inside. I think it was Ben Bulkley, wasn't it? Going down the inside there, and I was caught up in that. There's the Jordan Daniels incident, which I can't really decide if he's at fault for that one, to be honest. Difficult to tell. Ben Buckley's been in the pit lane, by the way, and this might be one of the reasons why. He hasn't tapped the wall, but he is our first visitor to pit lane.
Well, I have an answer to both things as we watch Charles Yao, who, he may have got some help there too. Jordan Daniels was given a penalty for that contact, and Ben Bulkley has been down pit lane because he also got a penalty.
It wasn't aggressive, especially for Bulkley. We saw it live. It was an aggressive move down the inside, 3 wide. Difficult to see how that was going to end in not contact, to be honest, and maybe a bit of caution could have been exercised, but you are forced into these positions around this circuit sometimes. You realise that these chances may well not come along very often, and so even if it's not a great chance, and even if it's a bit dangerous, you are somewhat feel compelled to take the chance and take the risk. But unfortunately for Buckley, the corner's landed on the wrong side in this occasion, if you like, and he's down in last. He's in the pit lane again now, second time for him.
Now that one, I'm not sure what that is about. Look down to the inside from Alan Owens. That puts him offline. Into the grass he goes. Now, thankfully, the car does not spin back across the track. He's able to hold off Fonseca, who's the black and red car behind him. He's honestly kind of lucky. It's easy to lose positions going wide through there. Yeah,
and he's lucky that he got away with that one, as the big group of the field, I would describe it, is on show for us here. This is from 15th place backwards, from Matt Owens back to the 956 we were just following with, and just up ahead, Mike Sachs making his way, or trying to get through on Patrick Gill there. It's all going on here. Jeffrey Gardner going off at turn of 1. There's quite literally too much for us to watch, even just at turn 1. Look at this.
Ooh, and Casey McDonald's sliding off the... And Saxtein as well here. Interesting. So Mike Sachs has lost it on his own going down into Charlotte's Web. We're seeing a number of drivers struggling into there and wondering if this setup just does not seem to handle well under that heavy braking in that downhill zone.
I think it's very difficult to get any setup to really work braking downhill through there when you do need an early turn in as well, relatively, because it's such a sort of dragged out hairpin, elongated hairpin. But maybe the setup isn't helping for sure. And you've got to remember that these are not the pro class drivers or even the club class drivers that we saw last week. It is accepted and certainly expected is the word I was looking for this kind of thing to happen, to be honest, because of the way that the class system works. So we'd expect to see that not the last of that on the way down here into turn 5, but likewise it will remain the best overtaking opportunity. Maybe those two things are sort of clashing against one another, if you like.
It does seem to be kind of feeding off one another. And look at this. I'm glad we went here because Aaron Nations is putting the pressure on to Carlos Lopez. This is for second place. Couldn't make the pass down into Museum Corner. And in fact, he backs off a little bit. Avijit Barua, another self-spin. And we're seeing a lot of these on the entry into the corner where the rear just pendulums around.
And that was literally moments ago, by the way. Barua was knocking on the door of a top 10 place, but almost moments ago, spun around and certainly dropped out of those positions. A myriad of different lines being taken through turn 14 that time around. We're going to have a hard job figuring out who's coming in the pit lane when the time comes, because everyone's taking all sorts of different wonky lines on the way through there. But actually, there are quite a few that can work for you depending on who you are, what you're most comfortable with driving. But yeah, it's good to see this battle for second place now, because this is quite important for the race. Jake Urbino is not head and shoulders above the rest, I wouldn't describe. However, he is taking time on the rest quite considerably because of this battle. Can Aaron Nations or Mark Foley or one of the others get through here and begin to make inroads on the lead? Because it's becoming clear that Carlos Lopez is struggling to.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'll want to try and get by him quickly if they feel like they have more pace. Behind him, that's Foley versus Williams versus Karachai, all fighting for P4. But they're going to get back exactly in line as they were before, with Foley leading the group in the orange and black machine. Just behind in the yellow, that's Jeff Williams, kind of sandwiched between them. The green and orange is Mehmet Karachai as they now hit the chicane. Very swift, this left-right portion of the track, and we've already seen it bite a few drivers. Very strong from Mehmet, but not strong enough to position himself here.
No, Williams is very much on the back foot now after a failed attempt to overtake Mark Foley. Karachai can very much benefit from that and capitalise on it, but has struggled to. He has sort of isolated the battle to make this battle for 5th place just their own, and that could help him as Foley is just dragged away, as Williams is dragged away from Foley here. That could help Karachai, but equally it may not, because that means that Williams can have all his focus on what's going on behind him and very little of it going on as to what's going on ahead of him, because Mark Foley is a second and a half up the road now. But it does seem that these two are, and all of them are, a bit quicker than Lopez, so maybe it won't be too long till they're back in the group.
They're now about 4 seconds off of Gerbino. Up at the front, or at least Lopez is. These two still fighting behind them, and that was much better from Jeff Williams, getting himself some distance down into Charlotte's Web. So we jump back a little bit now to the battle for 13th, and it's a right freight train just behind Charlie Fair, but he's using this track to his advantage. He knows it's hard to pass, and he's holding them up as best he can.
Yeah, this is the biggest group in the field, as I described earlier, from 15th place on backwards. Chris Costis, though, is now involved in it as well, so it's a 6-car train now compared to what we were seeing earlier on. And they are not that far away from the battle for 11th place as well. So it is, and you can just see what's going on behind them too. It's a very busy part of the field, but this is a part of the field where mistakes have been fairly common in this first quarter of the race, and that means that the situation very volatile. Any mistake here will drop you a lot of places, and any mistake is seemingly just around the corner for any of these drivers, given what we've seen so far.
A little bit of a look from Casey on Owens there, but the tan-colored car of Matt Owens in the 077 holds him off for now. Somebody having to catch the car, though. That was Nathan Abuhaka, and thankfully keeps his Roxy car out of the pit wall. It's often that you'll see cars spin and just smash into that concrete.
Yeah, and dropping out the group as well somewhat. Jordan Daniels will now catch up to Abuhaka, so that will be a problem, because Daniels has been driving through the pit lane, I believe, for a penalty, and will soon be putting that pressure on for 18th place, and indeed is doing that on the way towards turn 5, and has made that place pretty easily down the inside. He'll be one to watch throughout this race for sure. He was a top 10 runner earlier on, and he seems faster than these guys.
We've only lost 2 cars so far. Marcel Yunus and Avijit Barua actually is our latest to leave. So not sure if that's related to the black flag or if he had some damage on top of things that didn't feel was worth trying to fix. They do have a spare car, we have to remember, if they get any sort of damage. So that, for those not familiar with iRacing, essentially you have a clean car that is exactly set up how your other one was. You just hop in it, same fuel, same tires and everything, and then off you go in return. If you can hold on to that until the pit stop, often you can get away with a little bit of an accident and not lose too much time, because it doesn't cost you anything in the pits. But if you have to make an extra stop, well, then you are out of luck.
Yeah. You can't really afford that kind of thing, even at a relatively short pit lane like this one. You have absolutely got to stay out of trouble. And as you said earlier on, part of this race is going to be about just keeping it on the road, keeping out of the pit lane, especially when you get into the lower levels of the Porsche Club of America Sim Racing Championships. You do put an extra bit of credit on staying on the road and just keeping things clean, because stuff like this can happen. Oh, goodness.
Ferrer involved in that one. Didn't quite see who else. That may have been Matt Owens. Ferrer's going to get it going, although amongst a whole sea of cars. Not sure if they'll call him for an unsafe rejoin on that. I didn't really get a good look. Let's see what caused it. Oh, well, Owens was really an innocent victim in this one.
Who was he and everybody else aggrieved by? I'm not going to take a guess, because there was, as we were talking about earlier, about 1 million people in that vicinity at the time. So I'm not going to take a guess and portion blame on someone who doesn't deserve it. But whoever was bombing down the inside there at turn 5 certainly does deserve it, because that was pretty aggressive. And it's okay, let's just be clear, it's okay to make aggressive moves, but you do have to slow down enough to actually make the corner and not bash into the side of those who are around you. And unfortunately, they weren't able to do that, whoever that was.
That was Chad Casey on the 379 that we saw going down the inside. In fact, he's under attack right now. Chris Costas looking for a position, up 13 from the start. Definitely the hardest charger, and he's thinking about trying to get another one. He rides the outside and gets a better launch. Almost looked like maybe Chad was giving it up a little bit.
Yeah, I wonder if it is for some of these places, because that was very easy for the likes of Costas, Kaufman and Abu Haka as well. So I don't know what's quite going on there, but he certainly gave up those 3 places very easily indeed. Whether he'll continue to do that, I'm not sure, but it'd be very unusual if he had a slowdown or anything that you'd normally point to at this stage. So I don't know what was going on there, because he's keeping pace with them.
I think I know what it is, because he got his penalty right about when that pass attempt was starting. So I wonder if he saw that black flag and figured, it's not worth trying to ruin their races as we go side by side. And Kaufman over Costas. It looks like he's going to go for the switchback over the tunnel turn, but he can't get the overlap into the next right-hander. My goodness, talk about putting it on the line. The 808 car is holding nothing back.
That was impressive from Kaufman. You very rarely see someone fire it in there at turn 12, and they don't get cut back because there's such a long right-hander through turn 13 and 14 coming up after that you're just never going to survive on the outside without the momentum, but he somehow did manage it. He was so far ahead that Costas didn't even have the chance to get back down the inside again. Well, the best move of this race so far, that's for sure. That move down the outside for the first part and inside of the second. I wouldn't be imagining we're seeing that too many more times tonight.
It was mighty impressive to see what kind of response Chris has for that. Not close enough coming through Charlotte's Web to try and re-attack and see if he can get that 14th position. Just behind him, he does have to watch out. Abu Haka is watching. And he has also had plenty of gains of his own. He's up 8 on this race. Oh, we got some side-by-side going into the chicane. And that is going to be Gill versus, I believe that's Daniels. And Daniels again. We go side-by-side coming up over the tunnel turn. The long way around for Jordan Daniels. Tries to cut down to the apex, but he can't. There's a car there. Patrick Gill can't fight anymore, and he falls back in line to 13th.
Well, I said we wouldn't be seeing that too many more times tonight. I didn't expect to see it the very next lap. Jordan Daniels, though, is one of the likely candidates to do it, because that was another impressive move in what's becoming an impressive drive as he tries to recover from that drive-through penalty that set him outside of the top 10. It's probably set him behind the result that he really deserved today as well, no matter what happens now. But he is going to try and recover what he can from this situation that he now finds himself in. 12th place behind the number 599 as we go to the group just behind them to Rex Jariwala, who's also another one of those big progress makers after that first lap spin. Can't quite do it though into turn 5 this time.
Yeah, Costas fought him back. Oh, but he almost loses control coming off the corner. Big wiggle that he thankfully catches. Abu Haka not close enough to capitalize on that after his failed attempt kind of put him in the clutches of Rex Jariwala. And Jariwala, you can see in the orange and blue, getting dangerously close to that pink machine as they now come through the swift left and the right, trying to get the power down on all of them, but nobody seems to be able to get an advantage.
Not for the moment. And are we going to get 3 in a row? Doesn't look like it through. Oh, 9, and here we go with Patrick Gill. Oh dear, off the side of the road, spinning around into the grass. Where's he going to drop down to? He's just going to stay within the top 20, is he? He gets dropped into a huge group, now headed by Matt Owens, and it's a simple solo spin.
Well, the virtual fans who set up a picnic chair over there are getting a very good view of action as 3 laps in a row we've had different things going on. A little bit of a look down at the inside from Ryan Ritchie in the orange and white machine. Can't quite get his nose in there on Patrick Gill now that he's got the car running again.
Change for 6th place as well here, by the way, as Alan Owens gets up ahead of Mehmet Karachai. for that sixth position. So Alan Owens continuing to march through the field as well. That's 10 places gained for him now. Not quite as many as Chris Custis, who's made it 14, and he's in 14th for the moment.
You had me wondering. I took a quick look to see what the lead is looking like, and it's down to 3 seconds. Remember, it was at 4.5 is off track. Goes somebody in the mid-pack there trying to make out who exactly that is. I think that is Peter Yurtza who gets it going, but he's going to have a slowdown penalty, no doubt.
It was. He will drop behind Patrick Gill, already has, and will drop again behind Ryan Ritchie, I would imagine, as well. Oh, here we go again. 11 and 12 it is. The second of the two chicanes, and he does lose another place, but slots himself in quite nicely. Just in behind a couple of those drivers, side by side, in towards 14 they go, or just a few different lines, in fact, through that corner. Now back out over the line for another lap. Starting a new lap, by the way. Jordan Daniels, the new fastest lap you just saw pop at the top of your screen. He'll be ruining that penalty because he's just gone a second quicker than anybody else has gone so far in this race. The previous best time, a 25.7. He's just on a 24.7.
Wow, that's incredibly impressive. So, yeah, this is a missed opportunity for him. Now, we should see some pit stops soon-ish at about maybe the halfway point, but remember, it can extend all the way down to about 10 minutes to go or thereabouts, as many of the drivers should have the ability to run quite long from what we've seen. There's another little peak coming down into, Museum Corner. That peak turned into, unfortunately, a big look at the grass instead.
Max Joe Wilder will surely have to give up some of that time then. And actually, he's not got very many people close to him, so should be okay. But again, this is the biggest group in the field. If you're going to get a slowdown anywhere in the field, you don't want it to be down here because you will lose so many places so quickly because of how close everybody is. But it's a very volatile part of the order as well. It's very easy that something like what we saw happen at turn 5 a few laps ago could happen and the whole group explodes, and it's reformed now, but just makes you wonder how long it will stay together for, especially with pit stops looming.
Yeah, the energy does feel like it's building a little bit. Oh, and speak of the devil, that is Will Mungia, who is the only driver in this group to suffer on that one. He'll get it back moving once again. Somebody making a move coming down into turn 5 in a big way here. I think this is Boccieri with Jordan Daniels managing to go past him. And I'm noticing that this is a theme. If you make a move, there is almost a chain reaction behind you. Either you get overtaken or those behind you get an opportunity, as we see a couple of the replays of recent incidents.
And in the live picture, by the way, Jordan Daniels making up another place because there was a slowdown there for Kenneth Eskridge, who was 9th, now drops to 11th. But I'm going to float a bit of just a speculation or not a prediction, because I wouldn't want to predict it, but just a thought. Maybe Jordan Daniels could still win from here after a drive-through penalty. I mean, he's 9th now. He's still a long way off the lead, but, you know, Jake Garbino doesn't look particularly comfortable in the lead. You know, he'd lost a bit of time to Carlos Lopez sometimes, and Lopez has just lost a bit of time now as Aaron Nations is catching up. So it's a very fluid situation for the very leader of the race. The only constant is that Jordan Daniels is quicker than all of them, again on that last lap, quicker than all 3 of the current podium sitters.
He has about 16 seconds up to Garbino. And you're right, he is reeling him in, but that's going to be a very difficult ask, although this is where that maybe alternate strategy on pit stops could help him out if he feels like he's got a gap he can slot into. But the track is getting more and more to be a conveyor belt now that cars have spread out, so that's going to be difficult. But Lopez, you mentioned this, down to 2.2 seconds. He does seem to have the speed. Did Jake use up too much of those tires in the early laps?
I think this is a combination of a slightly better lap for Lopez and a slightly worse one for Garbino, and combined that it's not making a good combination for the current race leader. You can see that by the way that Aaron Nations has lost a little bit of time here. He's gained a bit through the final sector as far as our live delta goes there as Jake Garbino. So normalizes to about 2.3, but it's a 26.8 from Gobino last time round. That's nowhere near where he needs to be, and 3 and a bit temps quicker was Carlos Lopez. So if he continues to do that, then he'll be there soon, but he doesn't continue to do that. This gap coming down is not consistent. It's fluctuating quite wildly.
Oh, Jordan Daniels takes another fastest lap, 24.3, and absolutely stomps on the field in terms of pace. It's just, he's kind of been his own undoing.
Yeah, that is extraordinary. I don't know if we're quite selling how extraordinary these times are enough. 24.3 is 2.1 seconds quicker than anybody else on this racetrack is going. Carlos Lopez was the second quickest with a 26.4. I've very rarely seen someone so much quicker than the rest of the field in any race. That's unbelievable, astounding, really.
The next closest lap from anybody who isn't Daniels is about 1.4 seconds away. That is just astonishing. Oh, and that's the second time we've seen Jarawala have trouble coming down through the museum corner, and he'll give it back once again as we get a little bit more action happening between Jordan Daniels and Alberto Fonseca. Fonseca will keep him behind, tries to stiff arm that car, and once again chops across him.
Yeah, these are the things that can cost Daniels the race here. These are the moments that he needs to strike, and he will do. Fonseca goes wide through the final corner. It didn't take much pressure for him to crack under, and so Daniels is through. These are the things, though, that will cost him. The last lap time still a 25.9, and still at least 6 tenths quicker than any of the top 3, any of the rest of the top 10. He was half a second quicker than, and so he is still going quickly, but those are the kind of things that can cost him. And as you said, this is pretty much a conveyor belt racetrack. It's not like the 2 races we saw last week where the field stays largely together for the first half. It is spread apart from the very beginning. There's nowhere to cut into, really, in terms of free air.
That's Owens trying to see if he could get anything out of Museum Corner, but nothing doing there for now. Mehmet Karachai just behind them, and our good friend Jordan Daniels is already caught up to them. By the way, I said it was about 16 seconds to the leader. Even with that overtake, he is now down to 12 seconds behind the leader. He is eating them up like Pac-Man. This is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, he's the favourite to win the race, surely. He's got a lot of risk fraught with this final 31 minutes. Like there, he gets down the inside of Karachai, who thankfully saw him coming, but if he didn't, then these are the moments where Jordan Daniels' race can really unravel, and of course he's got to do the catching, and I would be slightly concerned about his tyre wear. Surely his tyres aren't being saved at the speed he's going.
And, I mean, he's throwing caution to the wind. Last lap still at a 24.7 for Jordan Daniels. But whatever the state his tires are in, the red mist is clearly down. So his state is fired up, and he's taking no prisoners. Big defense from Owens coming down into Charlotte's Web. We've seen drivers mess this one up before. Can he get an over-under? No. Nicely done by the 411 car.
Yeah, nicely blocked for now, but he's going to have another go into 7 and 8, is he? You don't want to give him the inside, but Owens knew that there was never going to be a dive there realistically, and now he'll just have to soak up the pressure down the back straight. It's going to be difficult for him to do anything here, but 11 and 12 has become a viable passing place in this race somehow, and so maybe there will be a move there, but Daniels has got to be worried about these kind of situations. This, though, is the biggest group he'll have to go through before... well, there is no big group ahead of him, so this is the last group, really. They're all on their own after this.
Once again, shows himself coming up into the last few corners, but this time there's nothing there for him. Maybe going to set up off the final turn, force him to have to take the outside down the main straight. Does cut back quite well. He gets some speed. He's almost off into the grass, but still just so tough to try and set one up into this first corner. So it's not going to be there yet, although he does get a mistake out of Owens.
Yep, he'll be on the outside for 2, but be careful, because look at Karachai, who will surely put his nose down the inside if he gets the chance, as Daniels very nearly did there on Owens. That means his run through 4 is not going to be very good, and it's going to have to be deep on the brakes if he wants to do anything here. Owens still feels the need to defend.
They're going to stay in position, but you got to wonder how long can this one last, because certainly they are going for it, and it's been impressive from Owens. A few other drivers have been able to withstand Jordan Daniels and his speed, but he's flummoxed him so far, and that's much to the joy of Jeff Williams, who probably would like to use this chance to run away, but has not yet, which is interesting because there's a lot of defense going on behind him.
I mean, that makes it clear to me that he's not able to, that he's at his maximum right now and he's not able to go any quicker. Here's 11 and 12 again. Said that this move wasn't going to be very common, but we very nearly saw another one there. You notice as you get higher up the order, these passes get more difficult, and Daniel's finding this one tricky. Down the inside at 14 is fraught with risk again, but he's right on the white line through the right-hand side. Surely he's going to just edge out Owens. No! Owens comes back at him. The fiercest defense of a position at the hands of Jordan Daniels we've seen so far today, and it's holding him back for the first time, really.
Daniels having to really get those elbows out. I think they actually made contact that time coming through the penultimate turn. Couldn't pull off the New Garden, so he'll have to try something else from here unless he finds a better route through next time around. Past the halfway point of this race, behind them things are heating up. Karachai is going to get a relief though. Fonseca has to gather the car up as he almost got loose over 4.
And speaking of gathering the car up, I think Urbino may have had to just do that because, oh dear, there's a Porsche off to the left-hand side there. Lopez is very much in the conversation for this race win here. The picture for this race win has all of a sudden got very complicated. Thought it was going to be a case of pole takes lead, takes win, as we saw in the club class last Thursday night, but it's a much more complicated situation than that. Aaron Nasons has got the pace at times to be with these guys, as well as Garbino and Lopez, who are fighting right now, and they've all got to worry about Jordan Daniels.
This is definitely hurting Jordan Daniels. He's stuck at that 12-second margin. This time he cuts back. This time he gets underneath, and he is fully through. It took him a little while, and it took him getting creative, but he made that one stick. Behind them, we get Mehmet Karachai coming on in. So this is a scheduled stop. He does not have a black flag. Whoa! Who is that?
That's Fonseca, is it? In the background, I would imagine. Yeah, it is in the 44. That's a pretty damaging moment for him, because he was maybe looking to strike on Alan Owens, who had just been overtaken. As we go back to Daniels now. By the way, if you were wondering why he couldn't have come into pit lane, he would have come across 6 cars in the next 10 seconds ahead of him, and that would have probably created more problems than he's had while he's been stuck in this group.
He's in his bed. He's got to lay in it. So as Williams tries to fend him off, this time going a long way around Jordan Daniels, sets himself up for the inside, coming down in the museum corner. This should be a slam dunk, and it is, as Jeff has to give way. Alan Owens almost gets an opportunity, but checks up coming down the hill as he has too much speed.
Fair play to Daniels for giving so much room there, by the way, on the outside of turn 7. Very often the driver on the inside just completely forgets about the fact there might be a car on the outside. Might be able to see it here. David Kaufman on the inside, excuse me, and there you go. Wasn't much room given. Not that it was used by Rex Joawala, but that's Kaufman up to 12th place, and another rare moment in side-by-side on the way towards turn 7.
Rex was trying to squeeze him quite a little bit there and had a bit of a connection issue on top of things. Nathan Abuhaka watching, and that's going to complicate any attempts he might have to try and make a pass. Another blink there. That's usually not looked on very well by the series. If that continues, he could get a warning or potentially told to send it down pit lane.
Something else that will be confusing, or at least for me, is that Rex is defending from Roxy, which is not a sentence I thought I'd ever be saying in my broadcasting career, but there you go. He should really just put on the lime green, shouldn't he? The teeth on the front. He fits that livery perfectly.
I hadn't even made that connection until you said something. Yeah, he of all people has claimed to try and put that livery on, as he's now sizing up Kaufman instead. Let's see if he can fight back on him. Again, blinking quite a bit. He'll stay defensive, gives him just enough room. Oh, no, he cuts all the way back across. He's going to get to the inside. He'll give him space down there. Oh, but he spins the car, and Roxy knocks him around as Abuhaka has no place to go.
You've got to give him some sympathy, David Kaufman, I think, because, maybe not the rejoin, you don't, but for the defence itself, because how difficult must it be to defend from a car where you're not really sure where it is? That must have contributed to the slight miscommunication between the two on the way down towards turn 5 there, because it was clear Kaufman was showing him the outside. Rex decided, no, I don't really want it. And so Kaufman said, okay, I'll take the racing line as well then. But actually it turned out the two met in the middle there, and it was a bit of an awkward moment for the two of them. So, yeah, that was not ideal, but unfortunately, they'll be separated now for a while, as we got Mark Foley, first driver, I believe, from the top 5 in.
Indeed. So one of our front runners is pitting, taking a scheduled stop as we watch the battle for the lead. Lopez still close on Garbino. Just can't seem to get by. Like the gloves as well that Carlos has been rocking here. Definitely a quite serious racing glove that he's got on. Wonder if those are actual ones when he gets into the real car as we watch the number 2 give chase down the back stretch. We're on the roof of his car here behind the man who started on pole, Jake Garbino. He's run down, but we always say it's one thing to catch, it's another pass.
Yeah, certainly has got a cool setup, hasn't he, Lopez? Triple screen display, you can just see ahead, and maybe a little bit small for my personal driving taste wheel rim, but you know, he clearly likes a small wheel, and that's fine. But utilising that at the moment to close in on the race leader as we go way back in the pack here to the outside the top 10 fights. Chris Costis finding his way through into 13th, and this is where Mark Foley is. So this is why this is important, because one of the top 5 drivers finding themselves in traffic. That was not unexpected, but he probably could have done with waiting a couple more laps for him to clear this bit of traffic before pitting in. That's probably what the other 4 are waiting for.
Now, Rex did get a warning for his connection. I haven't looked at the car recently, so I don't know if it's still blinking. But to add insult to injury for David Kaufman, he was given a black flag for unsafe re-entry. So things have gone bad for him recently here. Somebody kicking up the grass coming off the final corner briefly. Alan Owens also pitting in. There's another front runner finally taking their stop. We maybe have about 10 minutes left in this pit window. Oh, yes, Lopez is ahead, and so is Nations. Garbino must have made a mistake.
Well, I think first of all, Aaron Nations has caught the both of them, but second of all, Garbino, yes, has made a mistake on the way out of turn 8. We've seen so many issues tonight with traction off of corners. It's been a real hot topic for these cars, and it always is in the Porsche car. And look at the way he's losing the rear now. He must have overheated tyres. It might be worth pitting in now for Garbino, just if anything else, to cool the tyres down, going at a slower speed and indeed coming to a stop for just under 10 seconds. But if he can control it, he'll continue on. They won't be enjoying, though, these hotter temperatures. They are rising, don't forget, and the tyres beginning to fall away from everyone.
The advantage has slipped out of his fingers, and this is what caused it. Defensive, and way too defensive, coming down into the museum corner, and that cut course, that's why he was slow. There you go.
Well, it's okay to be so defensive, but it's not okay to miss your braking point by that far.
Something's happened to Lopez just now. I think Lopez went deep. There he is.
Wow. He's a long way in the gravel there at turn 5. There's his reaction real time. Can't see much from there, whether he's aggrieved or annoyed in himself, but that's a long way off to find yourself on your own.
Apologies, I know we didn't see that on screen, but I just caught him out of the corner of my eye, and that means Aaron Nations has gone from 3rd to 1st and effectively a lap, and yeah, just straight up went too hard into the corner.
What a disastrous, unforced error for Carlos Lopez. Done all that work to get into the lead. Basically spent the last 40 minutes with his sole objective being get into the lead. And as soon as he's got it, he's outbroken himself at turn 5. It's also given Jordan Daniels a new bit of ambition now, because with less than 20 minutes to go, he is in the game again. Not that he was ever out of it, really, but he's certainly back in it now. With less than 20 minutes to go, he's just 5 seconds off the lead.
Unbelievable stuff from the 069. Lopez is going to have a rough time, but I imagine that he's going to fight it as hard as he can to hold on to what is now just fighting to try and stay on the podium at this stage. Will either of them try and take a pit stop? Highest driver to have pitted right now is still Mark Foley. He sits in 13th, and he's running a 128 last time by. So actually, that is a rather poor lap from him. So I think he's struggling a bit. Daniels, in the meantime, unable to make this one stick down into Charlotte's web. He gets a decent exit. Will he show himself coming into the right-hander? No, he's going to stay patient.
Well, he can only play the patience game for so long. We are in the final third of this race now, and Daniels hasn't got all the time in the world. One thing that I'm really beginning to ponder now as we get towards the end of this race, no matter what the outcome, how on earth did Jordan Daniels only qualify 9th? He's showing pace at the moment that is good enough for pole for sure, but now he's only all of a sudden decided to use it. Looking on the outside before 11 and 12, having another go into 13. He's rather liked that move, couldn't quite make it work, and he's had less success with it actually the further he's gone up the field, and now he comes in.
There you go. I think this is the smart call right now. He's going to have a harder time trying to pass these cars, and he definitely has the speed in comparison, so he'll look for the undercut. To answer your question about the qualifying, first lap was deleted, second was a 26.3, third was a 26.1, so set his best lap on the final run. I wonder if he'd taken the best out of the tires by then, and that's why he wasn't able to do as much as he could clearly in this race.
I mean, I would believe that if he only set one valid lap time and he was really sort of taking it easy to make sure he got one in, but he had 2 chances, so we'll have to hopefully chat to him at the end and find out. But he's making his way out of pit lane now. Conservative on the pit lane time because it was 10.2 seconds in the box. He clearly doesn't want to underfuel, and nobody does, but he's making absolutely sure of it. Very important for him there, by the way, to get out ahead of Rex Jaiwala, and he absolutely has by about 2.5 seconds. He's got 7 seconds ahead of him now of no traffic.
Brilliant stuff. Jeff Williams also returns to track in a battle for position with Charlie Ferrer. However, Charlie has not pitted yet. Let's see if he'll be able to pit himself and get himself out of the equation, as Jeff probably does not want him in front since he's trying to chase down Mehmet Karachai, who is just up the road, separated by these cars that have not affected their strategy.
Yeah, by the way, Farah's our nation's now in a comfortable lead because of Jake Gabino clearly making a mistake on the last lap. I would be in the pit lane right now. Carlos Lopez is in right now, but I think it's too little too late for him. Even one lap is going to mean he'll get undercut unless his pit stop is a good couple of seconds quicker.
Oh, and I saw some smoke. It looks like Alan Owens, who's far down the order at this stage because he served a penalty a little bit earlier. Jeff Williams here coming through the last little bit as Lopez finishes his pit stop. Let's see how long this one lasts. It's a little long. It's quite long. It is up to 12, 13, 14 seconds. Something has gone amiss.
It has. We didn't see it from the start to see whether there were tyres involved, but I'd be very surprised if there were. It's certainly a long stop, though, and that's, even if he was in contention before, that certainly put him out of it. 18.4. You very rarely see pit stops longer than that in this series.
That will be crushing. He had an opportunity to take the win, and it's basically fallen apart in the last 15 minutes of this race as we watch him at least get one spot over Russ Elizondo. In fact, I think that is lapping that car, so that's not for position, but at least getting him past one more car. Still waiting on Nations, Garbino, Boccieri, and Eskridge to pit. Jordan Daniels, highest driver to have pitted. And the Ryzen something region for Chad Casey on here, as he's hot on the heels of Ryan Ritchie. And is he going to be hot ahead of him? It looks like it. He gets through. Ritchie can't hold him back, although he gets a good launch off the corner. Look at that. Finds the throttle so much better. And Casey can't get it done.
Very smooth exit off of the outside there. And Casey under a bit of pressure indeed from Chris Costis, who's just in behind as well, looking up the inside, who has made a stop, by the way. This part of the field is infiltrated with drivers both who have pitted and who haven't, so it's very confusing as to who's actually fighting who here. But Costis is not really fighting them, although because he's caught up in this, he is being caught by Patrick Gill and Casey McDonald, who he is fighting.
This has shaken things up for sure with so many different strategies going on. Chad wanted it really badly into there. Oh, he's going to go. Okay, he's going to pit. Thought he was going to try and go the long way around to the penultimate turn, but instead he is just trying to dash. Well, yeah, that's true. Good point.
Yeah, he's just not quite going to make a move going that far around. It's like a Joker lap in Rallycross, isn't it? It's so far wide. But anyway, yeah, he'll pull into a stop. I'm, by the way, still so surprised Aaron Nations is still out in the lead. If these guys are not careful, then they're just going to let Jordan Daniels in the lead of this race without challenge. And at the moment, that looks like it's what's going to happen.
Well, Garbino was going to give us a good indication. So he's coming in for his stop. And Daniels is coming onto the main straight right now. So we watch on board.
Oh, sorry. I thought he. Oh no, he has gone too far.
He did go. He went way far.
Yeah, I thought it was. Well, we're not going to get a great indication anyway now because he's gone so far. But look at that. Garbino's barely through 5 seconds of his stop before Daniels is through. So I think that gives some hope to Nations. I think he is still doing enough to get ahead here. However, he's leaving this too long, in my opinion.
It was about 7 seconds slow from cone to cone for Jake Garbino. Another top driver throwing away now, even it looks like a podium. And that means, well, actually, no, I take that back. He is out in second of those who have stopped, but he's a long ways back from Daniels.
Lopez's stop was so long that his lane time was still longer than Garbino, even despite what we just saw.
Wow, incredible. So 8 Nations now leads. Ken Eskridge is in second. Both of them owe us a pit stop. And they should be coming in within the next couple minutes. So probably 1, maybe 2 more laps at max.
Well, it's going to be just the one. Nations is in right now from the lead of the race. Eskridge, as far as Daniels is concerned, would probably like to be in the pit lane right now because Daniels will be slowed down by the 77 if indeed this goes on for too much longer. You see a spin in the background there for someone out of turn 5, but this is nose to tail for Jake Garbino, also trying to get through on a lapped car and unsuccessfully so as well. Where is Daniels though? It looks like he's through. Nations is in the pit lane for 11 seconds, and in the end it hasn't really mattered at all. 3.5 seconds the gap between Daniels and Nations, and it would need to be a very short stop for Nations to actually still get out in the lead.
The 069 machine is just on another level compared to the rest of the class tonight. And he's got 11 minutes left on the clock with pace still in the car. Basically, it's his race to lose from here now that he's got the track position. Ken Eskridge is in his mirrors, and Ken still needs to stop. So he's really of no concern to Jordan Daniels. Nations 4 seconds behind the overall leader right now. Garbino still showing in third potentially. It depends on where Ken Eskridge comes out. I think he should come out ahead of Ken right now, which is a bit surprising. I guess there have been so many mistakes at the front of the field that Garbino's kind of just did a little less damage than everybody else's.
Yeah, I think so. I think that battle for the last podium spot will be an interesting one between Garbino and Lopez, with the 1.5 seconds between them. But you're right, there has been mistakes from both of them in that pit stop phase, which has sort of allowed them to gravitate towards each other. And on another day, Aaron Nations would have stepped into that void and won this race, but he's come up against Jordan Daniels, who's going to win here by, I would say, maybe 20, even despite the small margin he's got right now, unless his tyres fall off an absolute cliff, which is not impossible, but given the way he's been treating them, but is unlikely. He's going to win this race by double figures, I would say, by some distance. Yeah, disappointing for everybody else. If you're looking, by the way, for an indication of how he's done before in this series, Jordan Daniels finished last season down in 26th place, although he was only at the first and last rounds of the season. The last round he finished in 4th, so he has been a front runner in races before, but he's never been as dominant as this in the sport class.
Casey McDonald in a fight for 17th. This is Patrick Gill just in front of him. And like I said, I've had the pleasure of getting to call his real races out there. Casey has actually been dominating, taking many wins out there, and he's going to try and see if he can back that up here maybe later, not today. He's just going to try and finish within the top 20, although some of this is not his fault, mind you. Remember, he got involved in an accident. He certainly got Patrick on the ropes, and he's going to send one down the inside. This is where he got taken out.
Oh.
And unfortunately, he's going to do the same thing, and I suspect that might be a penalty.
Yep, he's been a victim and a perpetrator now, I'm afraid, of an incident down at turn 5, and he will give it back. Yeah, but he has given up place to Peter Yerkser as well, and a lapped car who is getting involved here, getting very involved there, is Carol Davis down in 28th place, one lap down, at very much behaving as part of this fight.
We might want to send somebody to check the fuel cell of Matt Owens. 8 minutes left, and he's just pitting now. So the 077 stretched that one out and then some. So we go back to Christopher Costas, who's been in the wars today, and it's not over because Charlie Fair in the bright green Arizona region car is trying to lay the pressure on, thinks about it for a moment down at turn 1, thinks a second time, and then reconsiders.
Hopefully named region, because even I know where it is. Yeah, on your point of fuel and pit stops, I think it's a fantastic thing that we've got slightly longer races this season, but the best thing I think about this season so far has been such a wide pit window. Now, at a circuit where getting stuck behind someone isn't so likely as it is here, we're going to see people in after 10 minutes, after 15 minutes, and then people going right the way out, so as we've just seen with Owens, going out to 50 minutes into this race. It's a fantastically wide pit window. It means that the puzzling nature of this race will remain right until the very end. I mean, we've only just now got the corrected order, and even now Alan Owens hasn't been in for a pits, or at least his most recent trip down. Or was it a drive-through, his most recent, I suppose? Yeah, okay.
No, it was, he stopped in his stall.
Oh, did he? Okay. It's not showing on mine, so that must be just my end. That's fine. But yeah, the point is, 50 minutes into this race, and drivers can still feasibly be out there on that same fuel tank, and that's a great thing because of the pit strategy having such a wide breadth. It means that getting stuck behind someone is less of a factor at maybe some of these half-easy circuits to overtake, and half not, like Donington Park. We're going to get a little bit later on, see that as a very open race in terms of pit strategy. Monza especially as well, although people will want the draft. So the fact that it is so wide creates so many opportunities and a lot of intrigue for us, which is a great thing.
Got to give credit to Charlie for that overtake we saw on screen over Costas, but now he's got to try and overtake Owens. Let's see if he'll do a bit of the same coming down into Charlotte's Web. No, he's not able to get close enough to try and attack under braking. Just a few laps left, so opportunities are going to run dry sooner rather than later. I mentioned earlier we'd only lost 2 cars. It is now up to 3. Ronald Cahill is the latest to be out of this race. But out of 33 cars, 30 still running. That's actually pretty darn impressive.
Yeah, we said this 2 times last week, and we're saying it for the first. Let's not tempt fate by saying we're hopefully going to say it 2 times again this week, but we're saying it was a very good attrition rate in terms of getting drivers to the end of the race. I think it shows that people are enjoying themselves as well, which is a good thing. You know, we forget about that in sim racing sometimes, about enjoying ourselves. So it's certainly a good thing that everybody's willing to stay on for the whole out. But of course, you know, you always do get this bounce at the start of a new season, and hopefully it remains as people continue to enjoy the series, and I'm sure they will do.
Exactly. Attendance has been phenomenal here at the start of Series 12, and the battle rages on coming down the main straight as we actually switch over to Gerbino and Lopez. Round 2. This one's not for the lead, though. This is to just get onto the podium. Lopez has cut into the gap, and there's about 10 seconds ahead of them, so there's not much hope of them getting more than this 3rd place.
And the position they were previously fighting over less than half an hour ago is 20 seconds up the road. That's quite a remarkable statistic as well. Jordan Daniels has rewritten the rule book as to what we can expect, although he has just done a 28.2. Let's hope that's not his tyres completely falling apart, otherwise we're in for another absolute shock in this race, and it wouldn't be the first. So on board we go with Lopez, and he's got to try and manufacture a move in the next 4 laps of this race. I think it's 4 to go. here for them both, and that's not a lot of time at this circuit to actually get a move. It's one of those circuits, as we've spoken about before, you really need to manufacture one and work at one over multiple laps. So realistically, he'll be lucky if he gets more than one chance.
He's got to be a little closer than this, that's for certain. Let's see if he can reel him in here in the next 4 minutes under braking car. Looks very, very strong. The accordion effect will help that somewhat, but you can see as they come off the turn, it does not go back. He is that close legitimately.
Yeah, he just has a look at the inside of turn 7, and Gabino's taken the bait a little bit there. He brakes quite late, but not late enough for him to repeat his trick there of going over the slowdown penalty at turn 7 and 8 and forcing him into going back to third as it was earlier on. Lopez did that exact thing and made up a place, but Gabino slows it up in time this time around. He'll be wishing he did that earlier in the race to retain the lead.
Well, at least he's learning and improving on those mistakes. Let's see, Daniels back to a 24.9. So, yeah, no problem with the tires there. I think he was just managing traffic on that slower lap. He knows he's got 10 seconds over the next car, so he can take his time going by lapped cars. Whoa, that was a little wide there from Gabino.
He get away with it as long as he's got the incident points in the bank, which he probably does do around a circuit like this. Yeah, the only reason I was concerned for Daniels is that he's been so quick so far. The only reason I was thinking about that is because his tyres might be getting ripped apart by his speed, but clearly they're not. And he, as you say, was either just managing traffic or made a small error.
Charles Yao gets off the corner better than Patrick Gill. He'll sneak around. Will Gardner do the same? He decides it's not worth the risk even this late in the race. Unfortunately for Kaufman behind him, who's a lapped car, he nearly loses the whole race there going off the corner. Thankfully, no harm, no foul, but in front of them, Charles Yao is fully off the course. That will cost him the spot. Back to Gill.
Very nearly rejoined straight into the side of the 111 there, but thankfully just restrained himself, and Gill was able to slip through into 20th position now, and this battle is going to rage on to the very end. They'll have a few laps left to sort this one out, but for the final spot inside the top 20, and if they lose too much time, they will be lapped, so actually it could be just 2 laps to go for them. The leader's just in the background here.
Exactly. He has 2 laps to go, as you mentioned, and obviously he's gaining pretty darn fast if he caught up to the leaders as quickly as he did. Patrick Gill lost his position with a poor exit before. Will he try and focus on that corner exit? A defense down the inside for Yao, because that is Gardner trying to see if he could overtake him. Charles still trying to defend, but this time he's on the outside coming up to turn 8. Not much he can do here unless he is brave.
Wow.
And somehow holds him back.
Well, brave or lucky, depending on how you look at it. Yeah, fortunate a little bit, I think, that Jeff Gardner didn't force the issue there, because he was within his rights, in my opinion, to keep his nose alongside, and that would have resulted in a spin. Yeah, now Yao having to defend again, but a lot less successfully. Gardner easily down the inside into turn 11. He'll be wondering why he even bothered with turn 7 after that, because that was very easy in comparison.
So Daniels has now caught them, looking the long way around. Charles Yao wants that spot back. Jeff Gardner fends him off. They're going to see the white flag, but might not be fully the white flag, depending on how Daniels feels. Another spot lost for Patrick Gill, this time to Gardner, who sneaks by. Are they going to see the leader go past them, or is he going to use this 14 seconds to let this play out in front of him?
Daniels would really rather not be anywhere near any of this, but he's seemingly just staying behind for now, and the others don't really want to let him through, because that would mean giving and exactly, he's going to lift off and give a lot of time away here, give Kaufman his lap back as well, or one of them. So he's not concerned about fuel, I don't think. He is just letting those guys get away, and he's just using this margin that he's built up to bask in the glory of what he's done this evening.
Yeah, that was very, very smart out of the 069. There's no reason to throw this all away, because it's not just a matter of letting them battle and getting that extra lap. If they have an accident, he doesn't need to throw this away. Being collected in their wreck is up in front of him. Yao and Patrick Gill certainly had a bit of an off coming through the right-hander. As we continue to watch our leader wrap this one up, he's staying just behind Kaufman, who is going to allow him through, maybe unintentionally. And McDonald goes off in sympathy just behind him on top of things. But out through the final couple corners, Jordan Daniels starting from 9th. We don't know what happened with his pace in qualifying, but we know what happened in the race because he took a massive victory here today at Barber.
Yeah, he's taken the field apart in a way I've very rarely seen in any category, in any series. Winning by over 13 seconds, nearly a quarter of a minute his winning margin, despite a penalty, despite overtaking much of the field. The final podium spot as well, taken by Jake Urbino. Carlos Lopez just running out of laps really to properly make a move. Looks like Mebakachi also ran out of laps to make a move on. Mark Foley as well, who hangs on to the last spot inside the top 5.
Excellent run from Urbino, recovering from his mistake earlier. Make sure that he doesn't give up any more than he needs to, and at least comes home with a podium. Owens is being pressured. He goes quite wide, coming over the tunnel turn. Charlie Ferrer following closely. Going to try and square this one off, get himself the launch here, but it's so hard to make the pass, especially at the very end of the race. In fact, he's a little slow offline. Costas could sneak one. He's close, but it's not enough of a straightaway, and there was 600ths of a second between them at the line.
That was very, very close, but as you say, the front straight is not very long at all, and so very difficult to do anything on that run to the line. Thankfully for Joshua Daniels, he didn't need to. He's still going as well in his multicoloured Porsche. I'm sure very, very pleased with the evening's work he has put in, because, as I said, he has dominated a field here today in a way I've very rarely seen.
Gardner finished ahead of Yao and Gill as well there at the very end. Look at the celebration. This maybe he celebrates too much on the pit entry. Jordan Daniels taking victory in emphatic fashion as Aaron Nations was behind him in P2, and Jake Urbino, like I said, rebounding to finish on the podium. Carlos Lopez also going to be kicking himself a bit. At one point, it looked like he could maybe win this race, but he's only 4th. Mark Foley was 5th, and then Mekarachi with a nice run to P6. Jeff Williams 7th, and Kenneth Eskridge in 8th. Then it's Carl Boccieri P9, and Rex Jarawala getting a top 10. Alberto Fonseca was 11th. Mike Sachs was in 12th. Then you've got Nathan Albuhaka in 13th and Owens 14th. Charlie Ferrer gets top 15 today. Christopher Costa showing us lots of side-by-side action to get himself 16th. Alan Owens in P17 and Peter Yurtza in 18th position, followed by Jeff Gardner 19th and Patrick Gill in 20th, with our last driver on the lead lap being Charles Yao in 21st. Casey McDonald a lap down in 22nd, is followed by Will Munguia in 23rd, Chad Casey on 24th, and Randy Lervold in 25th. Then you've got Ryan Ritchie in 26th, and Elizondo, your last driver, Davis, your last driver, a lap down, 27th, 28th for them. From there, we only have our 3 DNFs in Cahill, Rua, and Eunice. Pretty good strike rate on drivers able to finish, and a pretty good win for Jordan Daniels, who takes victory in spite of starting 9th and in spite of a penalty early on in the race. Jordan, I mean, that was a masterclass out there. We were stunned that not only you bounced back from the penalty, but that you chased down and took the lead. Might need to see if we can get Jordan properly mic'd up here. See if he can unmute to himself, as we'd love to hear from Jordan. There we go. Now we've got him. Jordan, you have a copy? Maybe he's not properly mic'd up after all. Bit of a shame. Certainly put in the effort in today, so I guess we'll maybe try him a little bit later, see if he can get his mic working. In the meantime, I believe you also have Urbino, our 3rd place finisher.
Yes, let's try. Jake, do you have a copy? Can you hear us? We're not having much luck tonight. No, he can't hear us either. Well, maybe he can hear us, but we suddenly can't hear him. Do you want to try Aaron Nations? Maybe we can go 3 for 3 on non-answers.
All right, we'll see if we can get Aaron Nations, who finished in second here today. Aaron, hopefully, do you have a copy? No, we do.
3 out of 3.
So part of, I guess, is going to be media training in getting these sport drivers up and ready to go here today. As Aaron looks like he's trying to get this sorted out, so we'll see whether or not we get him talking to us here in a moment. He's still muted currently, unfortunately, but again, Aaron with an excellent drive, and I thought Ewan made a very good point that if it weren't for Jordan Daniels, he would have been on course to take the win. Looks like I don't think we have a chat with him, so
I was going to say, should we go around again? Try.
I'm checking to see what our producer's going to ask here.
Oh yeah, that's a good.
He was typing some info.
We'll go around again, see if Jordan can hear us first.
Okay, we'll give this one more shot. So now we've got Jordan back in with us. Jordan, do you have?
Hey, what's happening? Sorry about that.
We got him. All right, welcome, Jordan. I mean, just an unbelievable fight back to the lead. Did you expect to do that?
I did, yeah. I'm sweaty. That was unreal. It just that black flag kind of pushed me in the next gear, and I just raced my race.
The question we want to know is, you qualified 9th. What hindered you in qualifying that you didn't show that speed?
I just couldn't figure it out. Yeah, I came in kind of late and I didn't have it figured out.
Wow. Well, you figured out extremely quickly. We mentioned during the broadcast that last season you saw good results, but nothing quite like this. Are you expecting to continue to trounce the field, or do you think they're going to catch up?
No, I'd like to keep winning. And if you look last year, I did the same thing at Daytona. We just went full send on it and, finished pretty close to the same. We just couldn't get that first place.
Well, again, you really left our jaws on the floor. That is amazing pace, and we look forward to seeing what you can do at Brands Hatch.
Cool, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, take it easy.
Jordan Daniels, our victor here today by 1/4 of a minute. As I guess let's go to Jake, since we got him next in line and Ewan's caught up with him.
Yeah, let's try again. Jake, can you hear us? Have you got a copy? No, doesn't sound like it.
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you loud and clear.
Very good, thank you. It's good to chat to you. 3rd place at the end of the race here tonight, just ahead of Carlos Lopez. You had a late battle with him. Tell us about that first and the end of the race, because it was a close battle that we saw a bit of in those final few minutes. Were you always confident you would hold on for that final spot on the podium?
Yeah, the fatigue was certainly setting in, albeit a bit earlier than I really wanted to. The lead felt good for the first half of the race, and then just kind of lost concentration. But I just want to say thanks to my coach, thanks to everyone in the PCA, my wife and dad. So,
sorry, just cut out for a second there, but you're okay. And what about the start of the race? I mean, it's always a contentious part at Barber, especially when you are starting from the front of the field like you did, and starting on pole position, which first of all you must be very pleased with as well. But second of all, to actually convert that into an early race lead too.
Yeah, no, very happy with the pole lap. Felt good. Felt confident first half of the race or so, but just need a bit more mental and physical fitness to be up to the challenge for the full race duration. But I'm committed to working on that, so we'll get them next time.
Absolutely, and Brands Hatch next time coming up in a couple of weeks. Is there anyone you'd like to thank before we let you go?
Yeah, I'd like to thank my coach, Eric Sutton, all of the pros in PCA who have helped me out on this journey, my wife, Sarah, my dad, John, and coworkers of mine that are watching. Thanks to everyone, and looking forward to the next time out. And thank you all in the broadcast booth. We appreciate it.
I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks at Brands Hatch. Congratulations on the podium tonight, Jake, and thanks for chatting to us.
Great. Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.
Thanks very much. Jake Gavino, 3rd place here tonight at Barber, and that concludes one of the most least successful RaceSpot interviews I've ever done as an overall, but we got there in the end, so it's fine.
Yeah. We got 2 of the 3. Unfortunately, Aaron Nation seems to have, I guess his bedtime came around, and sadly. But that's going to wrap us up. And again, we want to thank you for watching. And make sure and join us, because we got one more tomorrow night, September 12th, with a challenge class. And that'll, again, be here at Barber. A big thank you to the steering committee at PCA Sim Racing, as well as our team, Ewan and Hugo. Also, thank you for watching tonight's broadcast of PCA Sim Racing. I'm Joe Peak. Race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.